made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 518 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
Today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Thomas Wetzen, and if you want to make the message of chiropractic simple, it will sell itself. For this episode, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It's 518 today, and I got Thomas Wetzen on with me today. Super excited to do this episode. I know we're going to talk a lot about chiropractic. We're going to talk about his career. We're going to talk about some leadership trends, and I think that there's going to be some great takeaways today. So if you're watching this, make sure you get your pen and paper out to take some notes because you might want it. But before we jump into this episode, I'm going to let everybody know the why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, first couple things are super fundamental. Is First Amendment, freedom of speech. We've never censored anyone on the show. I think that that's really important in today's era. And we also protect family freedom and medical health freedom because we let people speak their truth about why they do what they do. And on top of that, we are very philosophically sound as a show. We do all of our work to protect BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. So if you don't know what that is, go to your favorite search engine today and find out what BJ Palmer's last words are. You're going to learn a whole lot more about chiropractic than you previously knew. And then as we go down the road, we do support subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence. We believe that man or woman, the physical, when they get adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that being said, Dr. Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, James. That was a great intro. And I appreciate what you're doing with the podcast and everything we discussed earlier that you're doing for the profession. So thank you for that. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And just because what we've done and produced so much content, I love the chiropractic story more than anything. You could probably pick up on that with our pre-interview chat. But this is a good opportunity for you to reintroduce yourself to your friends and family and patients, practice members, colleagues, people that went to high school with you. They're going to see this and they're going to be like, oh, so that's what he's up to today.
They might not recognize me. I used to have hair. In high school, I had hair.
So let's just share with everybody your chiropractic story and how you got to where you are today.
Well, my chiropractic story is somewhat unique. Well, not unique is what I meant to say. I went to undergraduate school, and kind of in the back of my mind, I had thought about being a chiropractor. My father saw a chiropractor. My older sister saw a chiropractor. My mother occasionally went to the chiropractor, but I personally had never been to a chiropractor. I got interested in it, and I went to Central Michigan University to play football. And they, at the time, were one of the first schools in the country to have certification as an athletic trainer. So always being an athlete and being involved in athletics and never wanting to go the route of drugs and surgery and covering up symptoms with drugs. There was an appeal there, and I got injured when I was playing football. I had a whiplash type injury, and the team doctor told me I had a concussion. So I went for about almost 2.5 months of having migraines on a daily basis, had challenges even getting out of bed to go down to eat, forced myself to go see the team doctor and the team trainer. I'd get a little massage, a little bit of electrical muscle stimulation. They'd write me a prescription, which thankfully I never took. And that would make me feel better for about 15 or 20 minutes. But I was really, really struggling with not being able to attend class. I missed some of my midterms as a result of this. And I just knew there had to be something else. And thankfully, one of my classmates who was there getting his prerequisites for chiropractic college said, "You got to come see my chiropractor." I was open to anything at that point because, as I said, it was a struggle just to go down 2 floors to the cafeteria to eat. All I wanted to do was lie in bed and stay in the dark. And when I got my first adjustment, it changed my life. I knew that not only what I experienced, but just what he was telling me chiropractic was and why he did what he did. I knew I wasn't going to be an athletic trainer, knew I was going to be a chiropractor. So that's how I got into chiropractic. And I can honestly say that I have been so fortunate throughout my career to meet and work with some of the greatest people that this profession has to offer. So every day I am grateful for the people I come across and the people I've had the opportunity to meet, to work with, and more importantly, to be able to call them friends.
Yeah. And I know you graduated from Life University, but how long have you been as a practicing chiropractor?
Whew, a long time. You are correct. I graduated from Life University, but I actually started at Sherman. So I went to Sherman before they had accreditation. So that'll give you an idea how long I've been there. I transferred to Life University. I graduated in 1989. So
Okay.
2 months ago, that was 34 years for me.
It's a lot of service, man.
Yeah.
And throughout that service lifestyle, now you're doing leadership position within the Chiropractic Congress.
I have.
Talk about that a little bit, because I think that makes it super unique and you're where you're at today.
Well, as we talked on the pre-interview, I had the opportunity to meet you in St. Louis at our annual Chiro Congress convention. And for those who don't know, Chiro Congress used to be referred to as COCSA, Congress of Chiropractic State Associations. So I have always been involved in the state associations and the national associations because the doctor I worked for when I got out of school basically made it an ultimatum. It wasn't a choice. He said I had to be a member of the state association. I had to be a member of a national association. So I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And probably a lot of your listeners know is Dr. Tom Clapp, who unfortunately we lost. He used to say all the time, just show up. And that's what I kept doing. I just kept showing up because I would go to meetings or I would go to conventions or events and I would hear the people that would complain. And it just bothered me that all they wanted to do was complain and they didn't want to jump in and do something to change it. So I just kept showing up. I was fortunate enough to be elected the president of the Unified Virginia Chiropractic Association. After we unified the 2 state associations, I was the first president that was elected. In that position, I had the opportunity to attend the Chiro Congress convention, which again at that time was COCSA. And when I got there, it was just similar to my first adjustment. I felt so at home because these were the people that were not only motivated and enthusiastic about chiropractic and the profession, but these were the people that were stepping up and doing what needed to be doing with their state associations, but also wanting to make a mark and do something for the profession on a national level. So again, I just kept showing up. A couple times they told me to stop showing up, but I didn't listen. And I just kept showing up. And I'm glad I did because I've gotten the opportunity to meet some of the most amazing people in the world. And possibly I would have met them at another time, but I'm just glad I had the opportunity to meet them the way I did.
Well, I'm just going to go back a couple things you said.
Sure.
I got into chiropractic because of a football injury.
Okay.
And I was playing high school football and I hurt my shoulder, and my athletic trainer at Davenport Central, right across the street from Palmer College, suggested that I go over to Palmer College and get some x-rays on my shoulder. Well, at 16, I'm a minor. So they actually asked my mom if they could do x-rays on my spine too, to see if I had any subluxations. So my mom green lighted it. And that was when I first got adjusted too, is from a football injury. So pretty interesting stuff, man. And
Well,
then, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, finish your story.
Oh, and then, you went on to talk about just keep showing up. And there's a famous thing that people have been saying for a long time, that 9/10 of it's just showing up.
Yep. So all I was going to add is when I mentioned about the team doctor he just wrote me a prescription. There was something then that my innate was telling me that just didn't seem like the solution. And I'm glad I never took the medication, because 2 months later, they took it off the market due to all the side effects and complications.
Yeah, I got my hair cut yesterday, and I got into conversation with a gal because I told her, I was like, "Do you know who Joe Rogan is?" She said, "Yeah," and I go, "Well, that's me for chiropractic." So she started like asking me all these questions about side effects to things. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm not a doctor, but I would never call those side effects. I'd call them direct effects."
Yeah,
And she's like, "Wow, that changes the conversation."
sure does. I like that. Can I steal that from you?
Of course, of course. And we've been conditioned to think that side effects are like, it's an easy out. But when you say this is a direct influence from something, like, it changes the conversation. And I think we just need to like call it for what it is sometimes.
Sure. And when you look at the third leading cause of preventable death in this country, is
Direct effects.
direct effects.
Mm-hmm. So let's change the conversation just a little bit and talk more about business, because that's something I'm really like, I find a lot of value in for our listeners, is when we can talk about marketing.
Sure.
What have been some things that worked for you throughout your career, and what are some things that you would never do again?
Is it okay if they're one and the same?
That's perfect.
What worked for me early on was just to get out and meet people, get out into the community and meet people. So that meant doing spinal screenings. Anywhere I could do them, I did them in churches, I did them at fairs, at local fairs, at county fairs, getting any opportunity I could get to get out and speak. I did fairs at churches, at schools. I had when I was in South Carolina prior to moving to Virginia, when I was practicing there, I had several members of my practice who were ministers. So I had the opportunity to go and speak in their churches, and just having that one-on-one relationship and the ability to have a conversation and dialogue with people, instead of like a true marketing campaign is just telling people this is what you should do. Creating those relationships probably been the most effective thing for me. At the same time, since I've been doing this for a long time, the idea of getting out and doing screenings on a weekend after I'm taking care of practice members all week, not what I really want to be doing these days. So doing more talks, really trying to focus on where I do talks so that I can share chiropractic with people, keep it somewhat intimate. But then again, I've done talks to upwards of 100 people or more. So that's not necessarily intimate, but it offers me the opportunity to ask questions and, again, dialogue more so than just talk to people or talk at people.
Well, Les Brown's one of my favorite people that I've ever listened to for motivation. And something he always says is, you got to be hungry. And it sounds like you've always been hungry, and you're willing to go out there and to do what it takes to become successful.
Well, I don't know. What's the other choice?
Exactly. And that's something to be admired about the people that we get a chance to have on our show, because, there are some statistics that will tell you that chiropractic has a fail rate of 50%. So a big reason that after 5 years of practice, they're saying that 50% of practitioners don't practice chiropractic anymore. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what their situations are, but it's really impressive when people can just say, do the simple things and go out there, build a community, build relationships, and the rest is a positive influence in your community with the positive practice.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really great takeaway for people that will listen to this episode, is to say, look, I didn't have to spend a lot of money. I didn't have to do, a huge campaign. I just had to go meet people where they were. And I guess my follow-up to what you shared with me is, you said that you like to do a lot of speaking.
Yeah.
Where did you learn how to be a dynamic presenter?
I don't know that I am a dynamic presenter. I'd like to think I am.
But who are some of your influences who helped you?
I will tell you honestly, James, I learned through trial and error. I started doing spinal care workshops in my office, and I just found that I loved doing it. I didn't care if I had one person or 25 people. And when I was early in practice, I don't remember who told me that the spinal care workshops, or the lay lecture, whatever you want to call them, that they're more for the doctor than they are for the practice members. I didn't understand that until I did one for just one person, and I had some scheduled and nobody showed up. I was like, well, I'm here anyway, I might as well do it. So I practiced, and I just kept practicing. And I guess if people feel I'm a dynamic speaker, it's just because I have a passion for sharing the message of chiropractic. Because if we don't tell the story, they're certainly not going to get it from a newspaper or from television or from a movie, because most television shows laugh at chiropractors and what we do.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle. Yeah, my good friend Roberta Monica would always tell me, if we don't tell them the story about chiropractic, someone will make up one about us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's something to pay attention to, is because we have to continuously. I was at the first ever Mile High Chiropractic seminar in Denver, and there's a guy named Joe Borio up there, and he must have said it like 100,000 times to keep telling the story of chiropractic. And that made a profound impact on me. So when you're talking about refining the ability to tell the story, I actually worked at that clinic I was telling you about in Chicago. And if we didn't get people signed up for that doctor's talk, the healthy spine workshop talk, the staff had to sit there and listen. Like, the doctor would always make us fill in if we didn't do our job and get people scheduled for those talks. So I've sat through a couple of them, and then I got so good at listening that if he was busy, I could fill in and start the talk or help with the talk or actually give the talk. So I think that sometimes it's not for the doc, it's for the whole team.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, to build on that, one of the things that really struck me, this was it was over 20 years ago, that I had someone who was a member of the practice. She was getting regular care. Her daughter was getting regular care, and she just couldn't get her husband to ever come into the office. And she looked at me very seriously, and she said, I don't get why he doesn't get it. It's so simple. Why doesn't he get it? And I realized that we can tell the message, and if we make it simple, it sells itself, for lack of a better term. It's not sales per se, but what we have as a profession sells itself if you're willing to share with people what it is and why we do what we do, and why, as chiropractors, we're so passionate about what we do.
That's powerful. That's going to be the opener. Make the message of chiropractic simple, and it will sell itself. Really, really great takeaway there. And I think this leads to our next segment of the conversation is, you're talking about this gentleman coming in and not understanding chiropractic. Now, what are you doing for yourself to stay healthy and tip-top shape and be that advocate for health?
Well, right now I'm not doing as well as I should be. As president of Chiro Congress, we have people spread out all over the country, so different time zones makes it a little bit challenging. But I get myself checked typically once a week. Push comes to shove, it may have to go to once every other week. But I try to get checked once a week, and if I need to, I'm getting adjusted once a week.
That's great.
I try to do my best to monitor my intake as far as food, not just what I'm eating, but how much I'm eating. Constantly reminding myself, because I remind practice members every day how important it is to get outside and get your vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
So I do play some golf. I try to get outside whenever I can. I play basketball twice a week, so I get in the physical activity.
Good.
But now that I'm getting older, I can't keep up with some of these young bucks that I play basketball with. So.
Well, that's cool. That's cool, man. Because I think just being honest with ourselves is important. But the chiropractic lifestyle, I always tell people, I've never scheduled somebody in for chiropractic care that I saw their life get worse. Like I always tell people when they practice a chiropractic lifestyle, it only makes their life and their futures better. And then I say on the other side of this, have you ever met anybody that takes more pharmaceuticals or more drugs that has a better quality of life? And the answer is usually no.
Right.
So I say, getting in, getting checked, and getting adjusted as needed will only be a positive influence on your life long term.
Absolutely. And to add to that, understanding that, if we fully understand that and we fully understand the philosophy of chiropractic, I'm never at a loss for a conversation with practice members in the office, because if we're seeing that they plateau with their care, it gives me the opportunity to revisit, well, what are you doing for yourself? What are your chemical stresses that you might be encountering? What are your mental stresses that you might be encountering? Most people that come into chiropractic offices, they can think pretty readily with the physical stresses. The chemical and the mental stresses, they tend to blow off and just say, oh, I don't have any stress.
Wow.
But then when we start educating them that the average American is exposed to over 1,200 different chemicals a day, the light bulb starts to get brighter and brighter and brighter. And then they start asking questions because they want to understand it better.
Well, I think that we just need to reprogram the thought processes for people, because I've seen this on a meme before, but it said something like diabetes starts first through our eyes, obesity starts first through our eyes, and it's kind of confusing, but it's what we see, it's what we're programmed for, it's what we have an emotional, like, it's a comforting thing when we see a food commercial, or we see like something that's heavy in sugar, or we watch a fast food commercial, or we watch like a pizza commercial. Like, we're indoctrinated constantly with opportunities that make us think that because we see it, it's good for us.
Yep. And I think I saw on one of your previous podcasts where you had Dr. Eric Plasker on there. He was talking about terrain theory.
Yep.
And I've had the opportunity to listen to and meet Bruce Lipton.
We've had him on the show also.
Yeah, and Bruce, as you know, talks all about the idea that it's not so much our genetics, it's the field, it's in our environment, and it's what we put in here that leads to a breakdown of the system.
Epigenetics.
Yep.
And we're products of our environment,
Absolutely.
I've seen these things where if they talk to like a jar of cooked rice bad, over time, the jar of rice will turn rotten faster. If the jar of rice, then they talk nice to it, it actually stays healthier and white longer.
Yeah.
Same thing with water.
Yeah. And what I share with my patients on almost a daily basis is the idea that the mental stresses, for every 5 minutes of anger, we suppress the immune system for 8 hours.
Wow.
And, a lot of people do Starbucks and that type of thing. And one of the things I do in my workshop is I talk about how the things we put into our body can impact us, and oftentimes in a negative way. So come fall, Dunkin' Donuts talks about pumpkin spice latte, it's back. And I saw something that said that a large pumpkin spice latte has the sugar, the equivalent amount of sugar as 17 glazed donuts. So you think about people that are so excited, as you said, they see it, they got to have it, and they have one of those every other day or every day of the week. What are they doing to their body, and what are they doing to themselves on a chemical and a genetic level when they're putting that kind of stuff into their system?
Well, one of the projects I did early on in my career was it was called Idea Protein, and I did some videos for them. And one of the videos that I did for them that really stood out to me was they did like this cadaver, and they sliced the person down laterally down the body, and they showed what the body composition looked like. But the thing that alarmed me the most was when they talked about what a granular sugar piece looks like under a microscope, and what it does to the vascular system and the artery system, and how that basically builds scar tissue. And that's why people have high blood pressure that do a lot of sugar. And if you're telling me somebody's getting the equivalent of 17 glazed donuts a couple times a week, that they've also shown that high level of sugar intake lowers the people's immunity and their immune system to function properly. So I think it's fascinating, some of the things that we're discussing today, just because, if people just knew what we know, they would do what we do.
Absolutely.
And they don't know that chiropractic is the answer for a lot of their thoughts, traumas, and toxins. But when you're talking about all the chemicals that people are getting, people are more toxic today than they've ever been in the history of mankind.
Yeah. For a presentation I put together a couple of years ago, I was trying to do some research, and there was a study out of Johns Hopkins that says the average American has more stress in 30 days than their grandparents had in their entire lifetime.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we are a super group of people that have adapted. And I love that about chiropractic too, because it really leverages adaptability. And that's like when you're getting adjusted and your nervous system's clear, you adapt. And that's why chiropractic was pigeonholed into being a pain profession for a long time, because people that get adjusted, their nervous system adapts because it's not under stress and it's not under compression anymore.
Right. And as sentient beings, I mean, we live our lives, we experience our lives through our nervous system. And if the nervous system is not functioning, that can skew and it can alter how we perceive our life and how we perceive reality. And going back to BJ and DD, the idea of, do you put more faith in a pill or a potion or a serum versus the power of the intelligence that created the body? If something like a flu or a cold virus can adapt and they're single cell organisms, what can our body do if we have trillions, or what do they say, 70 quadrillion cells in the human body? If all of those cells are adaptive, think about the potential we possess if we just make sure we remove interference and allow the body to do what it's designed to do, and that's be self-healing and self-regulating.
This is super powerful information. So when people are watching, I urged everybody to get their pen and paper out and make notes. I think that we've shared a lot of great stuff so far. I know that we only have a couple minutes left for the show today, but let's go like a lightning round. I know some of these things aren't going to be easy to answer quickly.
All right.
Let's go to question number 5. Where do you see the profession going in the next 20 years?
To the moon. Seriously, I'm really excited. There's never been a better time to be a chiropractor. I think what occurred over the last couple of years, people may not even realize it on a conscious level, but the general population is beginning to understand there's got to be a different solution. When we, by far, the United States spends more money on so-called healthcare than the countries ranked 2nd through 11th combined, yet we rank somewhere around, depending upon which study you look at, 34th to 47th in overall health and wellness. There's a problem there. So people are looking for what we have. And as we talked earlier, people are looking to be led. And if you can lead them with something that is true, and there's no stronger truth than the body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism, we have nowhere to go but up as a profession.
And subluxations kill.
Yeah. You probably could have summarized all that with just
that. Heroes. Who's helped you become the man that you are today? And if you could sit down and talk to someone for an hour, either chiropractically or historically, who would it be?
Wow, that is a tough one, because as I said earlier, I've been so fortunate to encounter some of the most amazing people in our profession. But I'm actually going to step outside of our profession. And I would say someone I would like to spend an hour with is Tiger Woods, because I am just enthralled with his mental focus and his mental clarity.
Yeah.
Granted, some of the things he's encountered have been they've been his own fault, but his ability to persevere through these things, I can't think of too many people who have that clarity and that focus to do that.
Yeah, I think when you think about an icon like Tiger, mental toughness is the thing that sets him apart from most people. And, not feeling bad, not having an emotional resonance with a mistake. And I think that when you have that with a sport of golf, you have a quick memory, and then you build excellence, and then you build routines, and then you become Tiger. And I think that that's really special, because I do think his what made Tiger one of the greatest athletes ever, was his ability to have mental toughness under high pressure situations.
Yeah.
Going back to chiropractic and private practice talk, share with us a miracle story and send us off with something to inspire people.
Wow. Miracle story I would probably have to share. I had a woman who was under care. Her daughter, it was an unfortunate circumstance. Her daughter was 17, got pregnant, chose to keep the baby, but the pregnancy was difficult. The boyfriend, when he found out he was the father, he just disappeared. So this is a young girl. She had the support of her mother and her family, but it was a challenging pregnancy for her. Mother wanted her to get under care. We started getting her adjusted when she was about 8.5 months. So at least we got her some care. After she had the baby, there were some challenges. She brought the baby into me when the baby was 4 weeks of age. Had already been on 5 different medications, and not slept more than an hour not at a time for 4 weeks. So you can imagine how this young mother felt as well. The little girl would not eat. Whenever she tried to nurse or even try to feed her with a bottle, she would just spit things up. So again, at 4 weeks of age, already 5 medications, they said if this 5th medication didn't work, we're going to do exploratory surgery. Don't know what they're going to explore, but we got her adjusted on a Wednesday. And when she came back in on Thursday, she said, I don't know what this is going to do, if it's going to help, because I just didn't really see a change. I said, that's okay. Let's check her. Let's get her adjusted. Got her adjusted on a Thursday, and I literally had one of the largest audibles for an infant setting C1. You typically don't get that cavitation, but there was just a loud cavitation or audible there. And the girl came back on Monday, because we're closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She came back on Monday in tears. And I thought something had happened. And she said, well, something did happen. On Thursday night, the baby slept for 7.5 hours straight. And since Thursday night, she has only thrown up once when I've tried to feed her. So what did I do? I found the subluxation. I removed the subluxation. Innate took over. I can't say I fixed that baby. I can say I fixed the subluxation, but what fixed that baby is innate. And if innate can flow, and if the body can function the way it's designed to function, those are the types of things that we see. And that's probably the one that sticks out in my career the most.
Well, that's Very impactful message there. And just really appreciate you sharing today. Last question for you.
Sure.
If you're the last chiropractor on planet Earth, would the profession survive?
Absolutely.
Let's do it together then.
I like that idea. Not just you and I. Let's all do it collectively.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of great takeaways with that last story, that last miracle story. And I think that people realize that I call it cradle to grave care. I call it first breath to last breath. I call it womb to tomb. I think there's a lot of, phraseologies that we can attach to principal chiropractic care. But I think that the earlier somebody doesn't live another day with a vertebral subluxation, the better quality of life that they'll be able to adapt to. And I think that we could solve a lot of issues in this world if people didn't have nerve impingement and nerve interference. So Dr. Thomas Wetzen, appreciate you being my episode 518 today.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate the invite, and I've really, really enjoyed getting to know you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me as well.
Great. So is there anywhere that I can send people if they want to learn more about what you're up to?
There is. Personally, or what I'm doing with leadership with Chiro Congress?
Let's send them to Chiro Congress.
Okay. That is chirocongress.org.
Awesome. Well, I will go ahead and close out today by telling everyone you're just one story away. Keep hustling. Dr. Thomas, appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great day.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.